Welcome to the Own Up Podcast with your host, Jennifer Long.
Hi, Jennifer Long here, President and Master Coach at Own Up and author of the book, Own Up, How to Hold People Accountable Without All of the Drama. What you're about to listen to is a podcast discussion of my book. This podcast was produced by my team, however, it was generated using artificial intelligence. I hope you'll be excited to hear it too, so listen in.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. We are diving into a book today that promises to change how we think about accountability.
Oh, yeah.
Own Up by Jennifer T. Long.
Okay.
You shared that you are really looking to implement accountability more effectively. And Chapter 1 sets the stage in a way I found really refreshing.
It definitely challenges the traditional view of accountability, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Jennifer Long argues that most of us see it as this punitive measure.
Right.
Something imposed on us when it's actually anything but.
It's funny you should put it that way because there's this quote early on that jumped out at me.
Okay.
She writes, "Accountability is not punitive. It is not a consequence, and it is not justice. Accountability is an act of clarity. Its only outcome is clarity around ownership of either actions or inactions, and of the choices associated with those actions or inactions."
That's such a crucial point, and Long really emphasizes that accountability as clarity.
Yeah.
When you think about it, so much of the frustration we experience in the workplace or even in our personal lives stems from a lack of clarity. We're unsure who's responsible for what, or we avoid addressing the root causes of problems.
It's so true. It's like we're stuck in this cycle of blame and confusion instead of actually getting to the heart of the matter.
Right.
And without that clarity, it's almost impossible to move forward effectively.
Yeah.
It becomes this heavy weight we carry around rather than a tool for growth.
I think that's a great way to put it. Long calls for a value shift.
Ooh, I like that.
It's not enough to just intellectually understand the concept of accountability.
Yeah.
We need to embrace it as a core value.
Okay, I love that phrase, value shift. It really drives home the point that this isn't just a surface level change. It's about fundamentally changing the way we view our work and our interactions.
Right.
It reminds me of when you decide to prioritize fitness, it's not just about squeezing in a workout here and there.
Yeah.
It's about making healthier choices a part of your lifestyle.
Absolutely. It's about shifting your priorities and aligning your actions with those values.
Yes.
And just like with fitness, embracing accountability as a value can be challenging at times, but the payoff is huge.
It makes you wonder, what are some of the roadblocks that prevent us from making that value shift?
Right.
What are those ingrained beliefs or assumptions that might be holding us back?
That's where Long's discussion of common accountability myths comes in. These are the narratives we often tell ourselves that prevent us from fully embracing accountability as a positive force.
Okay, so let's unpack these myths.
Yeah.
What are some of the big ones she tackles?
One of the most pervasive myths is this idea that people are inherently unpredictable.
Oh, yeah.
You never know how they're going to react. So why even bother with accountability?
Oh, I've definitely fallen into that trap before.
Yeah.
Especially when you're feeling frustrated. It's easy to throw your hands up and say, what's the point?
It's a common response, but Long challenges that assumption.
Okay.
She argues that people are actually quite predictable, particularly in a work setting.
Really?
We tend to fall into patterns, and understanding those patterns is key to driving accountability.
So it's not about writing people off as unpredictable, but rather taking the time to understand their patterns and motivations.
Exactly. And building on that, another myth Long addresses is this idea that accountability has to be this complex, overwhelming process.
Oh, I can see that one tripping people up.
Yeah,
We tend to overcomplicate things, don't we?
we do. But Long reminds us that even small steps towards accountability are better than none at all. It's not about achieving some perfect state of accountability overnight.
Right.
It's about making progress one step at a time.
It's about progress, not perfection. I like that.
Yeah.
What other myths does Long debunk?
Well, a big one, and this might seem counterintuitive, is that demanding accountability is actually effective.
You mean like the whole my way or the highway approach?
Yeah.
I can't imagine that goes over well.
Not usually. Long emphasizes that true accountability cannot be forced. It has to be willingly embraced. It's about cultivating a culture where people feel safe to own their actions, both the good and the bad.
So to circle back to what we were discussing earlier about accountability being a value shift, it sounds like a big part of that shift is moving away from a blame and shame mentality towards one of understanding and ownership.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that we all make mistakes. We all have areas where we can improve, and the best way to grow is to approach those situations with a spirit of collaboration and a desire for clarity.
It's making me think about how this plays out in a real-world workplace setting. Say a project deadline is looming and one team member is falling behind. How would a leader approach that situation through this lens of accountability as clarity and ownership?
Instead of resorting to blame or ultimatums, imagine a manager initiating an open, honest conversation. They acknowledge the missed deadline, but then the focus shifts to understanding. What obstacles are getting in the way? Are there any roadblocks they can help clear?
So it's about approaching the situation with curiosity and a genuine desire to understand rather than jumping to conclusions or placing blame.
Exactly. And in that scenario, the team member also has a responsibility to be upfront and honest about the challenges they're facing.
Yeah.
They need to own their part in the situation and be open to finding solutions collaboratively.
It creates this sense of shared responsibility and mutual respect, right? It's not about one person being the hero or the scapegoat. It's about working together to navigate the situation and achieve the best possible outcome.
Precisely. Long highlights the power of turning negative experiences into positive ones through accountability.
Oh,
It's counterintuitive, but it's often in those moments of acknowledging our mistakes and taking ownership that we find the greatest opportunity for growth.
I can see that, though it's definitely easier said than done. Our natural instinct is often to shy away from our mistakes, hoping no one will notice.
Of course, we all want to present this image of ourselves as competent and capable,
Right.
but Long suggests that this desire to avoid negative experiences can actually create more negativity in the long run. It's when we face our mistakes head on, embrace the discomfort of accountability, that we can extract valuable lessons and emerge stronger on the other side.
So it's about reframing those I messed up moments as opportunities for learning and growth rather than allowing them to become these sources of shame or self-doubt.
Exactly. And when leaders model that behavior, when they're willing to admit their own mistakes and embrace accountability, it creates a ripple effect throughout the team.
It creates a culture of psychological safety, which is something I know we're hearing a lot about these days.
And for good reason. When people feel safe to take risks, to experiment, to make mistakes without fear of punishment or humiliation, that's when innovation thrives.
It's almost like building this foundation of trust where people feel supported and empowered to do their best work even when things get messy. But let's be real, not everyone is going to jump on board with this whole accountability as a positive force thing right away. What about those who seem resistant to change, who might even see accountability as a threat?
You're right, change can be challenging, and some individuals might have deeply ingrained beliefs or past experiences that make them hesitant to embrace accountability.
So how do you navigate those situations? It's easy to say lead by example, but what does that look like in practice, especially when you're dealing with someone who seems set in their ways?
I think it's about consistently modeling the behavior you want to see, even when it's difficult. It's about demonstrating through your actions that accountability isn't about punishment. It's about clarity, ownership, and finding solutions together.
It's almost like showing them rather than telling them that this approach can actually lead to better outcomes for everyone involved.
Exactly. And remember, accountability ultimately boils down to clarity of ownership. So if you're dealing with someone who's shirking responsibility or deflecting blame, it's about gently but firmly guiding them back to that ownership.
So not letting them off the hook, but also not coming in with accusations or judgments. It's about finding that balance between holding people accountable and maintaining a supportive environment.
Exactly. It's about saying, hey, I recognize this situation and I understand it might not feel great, but ultimately, this falls under your area of responsibility. How can we work together to find a solution?
It's that collaborative approach again, that we're in this together mentality that can make such a difference.
Absolutely. And sometimes it might even involve having those tough conversations about performance or behavior. But even in those situations, approaching it from a place of clarity and ownership rather than blame can completely change the tone and the outcome.
It's about reframing those difficult conversations as opportunities for growth and alignment, for strengthening the team as a whole.
Precisely. And that's what makes Jennifer Long's message so compelling. It's not about creating a culture of fear and compliance. It's about fostering a culture of ownership, growth, and shared responsibility where everyone feels empowered to do their best work and support each other along the way.
It's inspiring, honestly. Yeah. And as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the key takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the most important thing to remember is that accountability is not something that's imposed on us from the outside. It's a choice we make, a value we embrace, and a skill set we can continuously develop. And when we do, it has the power to transform not just our work lives, but all areas of our lives.
Beautifully put. And for our listeners who are ready to put these ideas into action, Own Up goes beyond just theory. It's packed with practical strategies and tools we can all use to strengthen our accountability muscles. So grab a copy, revisit your favorite points from this deep dive, and get ready to level up your accountability game. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those conversations flowing.
Thank you for listening to the Own Up podcast. For more information about Own Up, please go to accountabilityatwork.com. For more information about Jennifer, please go to her author website at jennifertlong.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe in your favorite podcast player. Thanks for listening.